Far out on the frozen edge of Kugaaruk, where the Arctic wind screams like something alive and the darkness lasts for months, there is a place the locals refuse to name after sunset, a place buried in ice and silence. Known only in broken whispers as Lab 18, they say the ground near it vibrates at night, as if something deep beneath the permafrost is shifting, breathing, waiting. Travelers who wander too close report hearing metallic groans rising from the earth, like enormous doors slowly opening where no structure should exist. Some claim they've seen a faint blue glow seeping through cracks in the ice, flickering like a heartbeat struggling to stay alive. Others insist that when you stand on the frozen ground above the lab, you feel watched not by an animal or a person, but by something that understands you, something that listens to your thoughts in the same way the cold listens to your footsteps. Kugaaruk residents avoid the topic entirely. The few who speak of it lower their voices, glancing over their shoulders as though the ice itself might punish them for remembering. They warn that Lab 18 was never abandoned, it was locked. Locked not because the research ended, but because something inside demanded it. And now, decades later, there are signs that whatever lies beneath the Arctic silence has begun to stir again, waking from a forced sleep and waiting for someone foolish enough to open the door. Elias Rowe pushes deeper into the polar night, the world around him shrinking to a tunnel of darkness illuminated only by the weak beam of his headlamp as he follows the corrupted coordinates toward Lab 18. The snow beneath his boots crackles unnaturally, as if the ice itself is layered over hollow metal rather than solid ground. Each breath burns in his lungs, but what worries him more is the feeling that the air vibrates softly at first, then in a steady rhythm like the heartbeat of something massive buried far below. When he reaches the ridged outline of the lab's entrance, half swallowed by drifting snow, he is startled to see frost on the walls melting in small circular patches, as though something warm has brushed against them from the inside. The metal doors are covered in deep scratches, not made by tools, but by long, uneven gouges as if fingers far stronger than human hands tried to claw their way out. Elias documents everything, but the wind suddenly dies, leaving a strange, oppressive silence that makes his ears ring. As he forces the frozen lock open, a rush of warm, humid air blasts him backward, carrying a faint floral scent mixed with something metallic, almost coppery. Inside, the lights flicker to life by themselves, illuminating corridors lined with pipes pulsing gently, as though transporting not air or fluid, but something alive. Strange markings shimmer faintly on the wall, triangular symbols etched so deeply they look branded into the steel. Elias steps forward, his camera trembling in his hands, and the clicking sound begins fast, sharp, spaced in precise intervals like a language of insects or bones snapping in slow motion. As he navigates the dim hallways, he passes observation windows smeared with a translucent film that stretches and recoils when his flashlight shines on it. The deeper he goes, the warmer the air becomes, until condensation beads on the inside of his visor, suggesting the lab has its own internal climate independent of the frozen world above. Then he reaches the central chamber and stops dead. Massive containment pods line the room, each one shattered from within, glass scattered across the floor in splintered arcs. Inside one of the broken units lies a residue resembling dried skin, but stretched far too thin and patterned with delicate, branching structures like veins. The hum starts again, low and resonant, vibrating through his spine. Elias turns and sees something move in the corner, a tall, spindly shape that doesn't walk but unfolds itself from the shadows, its elongated limbs bending in ways his mind immediately wants to reject. Its surface shimmers like wet obsidian, rippling as it shifts shape, as though its body is not fully solid. Elias tries to back away, but the corridor behind him shifts subtly, like the walls themselves are breathing, pulsing, reshaping. The clicking sound intensifies, echoing around him in a circle, overlapping until it becomes a message, a rhythm, a pattern his brain almost understands but desperately wishes it didn't. The creature steps forward not with footsteps, but with a fluid glide, and Elias feels pressure in his head, like someone is rifling through his memories. He stumbles, drops his camera, and the last thing it captures is the creature lowering its faceless head toward him, the hum swelling to a deafening pitch, the shadows curling around his body like tendrils of living smoke. The video cuts abruptly as the sound peaks, leaving only static that still vibrates faintly as if Lab 18's heartbeat hasn't stopped, and whatever woke inside is still moving, still searching, still learning. When the storm finally clears over Kugaaruk 3 days later, the search party finds only Ilias's snowmobile half buried in wine-carved drifts, the engine still faintly warm, as if he'd stepped away minutes, not days, earlier. The entrance to Lab 18, which he had managed to pry open, is frozen shut again, sealed by a thick layer of ice so smooth and perfect it looks unnatural, like it formed in a single breath rather than over time. No footprints lead away from the site. No signs of struggle remain on the surface. It is as if the Arctic swallowed him whole. Back in the settlement, the elders refused to discuss it, insisting that Elias was claimed by whatever sleeps beneath the ice, just like others before him. But the unease that settles over Kugaaruk becomes impossible to ignore when his camera appears 2 days later on the steps of the local radio outpost, placed neatly, deliberately, as though returned by a careful hand. The footage ends with his terrified whisper and a violent burst of static, yet something far more disturbing hides in the background noise, a faint, rhythmic clicking that wasn't there when he recorded it, repeating in a precise pattern like a message trying to break through. That night, the humming begins again beneath the frozen ground, louder, clearer, pulsing through the permafrost like the slow awakening of something ancient and hungry. And as the villagers barricade their doors and extinguish their lights, one truth becomes undeniable: whatever was contained in Lab 18 is no longer trapped, and the Arctic darkness is no longer empty. The anomaly is awake, it has escaped, and it has already learned how to find its way to the surface.